Quick question. Name the funniest person in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Most people say Tony Stark. Some say Thor. Almost nobody says the woman who has spent 9 years playing Spider-Man's girlfriend. And that is genuinely strange, because that actress has an Emmy, a Golden Globe nomination, and one of the most unpredictable filmographies of anyone under 30 in Hollywood. I'm talking about Zendaya. And today we're breaking down something a lot of comic fans have quietly complained about for almost a decade. The MCU has had one of the most talented actresses on the planet playing MJ, and for 3 whole movies, it barely let her do anything interesting. That is apparently about to change. So let's get into it. Before we talk about what went wrong, let's talk about how big this actress actually became, because it matters for what comes next. Zendaya started as a Disney Channel kid. That's it. That's the starting point. From there, she landed a small role in a little superhero franchise you might have heard of. Then Euphoria happened on HBO, and suddenly critics were comparing her performances to seasoned dramatic actors twice her age. Then came Dune, 2 of them. Massive, expensive, visually stunning science fiction epics that somehow satisfied both critics and box office numbers, which almost never happens. Then Challengers, a movie about a tennis love triangle that had zero right to be as talked about as it was, and it became one of the most quoted, debated films of that entire year. Then The Drama, a smaller, heavier film about a school shooting, and she carried it. So by the time you stack all of that up, you get an actress who can do prestige drama, award-season indie work, and blockbuster spectacle, sometimes in the same calendar year. That's the resume. Keep that in mind. Now here's the frustrating part. That same actress has spent 3 Spider-Man movies, mostly standing on the sidelines. In Homecoming, she plays MJ as the deadpan, sarcastic outsider who throws one-liners from the back row. Funny, sure. Memorable, yes. But it's a supporting joke machine, not a real character with her own arc. In Far From Home, she becomes the awkward teenage crush. There's a whole plot line about Peter trying to work up the nerve to tell her how he feels. It's cute. It's also incredibly thin material for someone who can act circles around most of her castmates. Then in No Way Home, arguably the biggest Spider-Man movie ever made, she's mostly reduced to the supportive girlfriend standing next to the hero while other characters drive the plot. She's barely in a third of the movie, honestly. None of this is a knock on her performances. She nails every single note she's given. The issue is what she's given. 3 movies, 3 flattened versions of a character who, in the comics, is one of the most iconic love interests in superhero history. And that gap between the talent on screen and the material handed to her is exactly why so many fans have been asking the same question for years. When does MJ actually get to be MJ? So let's talk comics for a second, because this actually matters. In the original Spider-Man comics, Mary Jane Watson isn't shy. She isn't awkward. She's the opposite. She's the most popular girl in school. She's confident. She's a little chaotic, and for years Peter Parker is terrified to even talk to her. When she finally does show up in his life, the classic comic panel has her leaning through his doorway, saying something like, "Face it, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot." That's the whole appeal of the character. She's not someone Peter slowly falls for over a school year. She crashes into his life fully formed, confident, unpredictable, and in control of the relationship in a way Peter absolutely is not. Sam Raimi understood this back in his Spider-Man trilogy with Kirsten Dunst. Mary Jane arrives with attitude, with a life already in motion, and Peter is the one chasing her, not the other way around. The MCU version never really had that. Peter and MJ's relationship in Homecoming and Far From Home builds slowly, sweetly, and honestly, without much tension at all. They both like each other. Everyone in the theater knows they like each other. There's no mystery, no imbalance of power, none of that classic MJ energy where she's the force of nature and he's just trying to keep up. Which brings us to Spider-Man. Brand New Day, hitting theaters July 31st, directed by Destin Daniel Cretton. Here's the setup. At the end of No Way Home, Peter makes Doctor Strange cast a spell so the entire world forgets he even exists. That includes MJ. Every memory, every relationship, completely erased. So going into this new movie, MJ has no idea who Peter Parker is. None. She has her own life now. Based on the trailers, she appears to be seeing someone else entirely, played by Iman Esfandi from Ahsoka. And Peter has to watch his old friends move on without him while he's still secretly running around the city as Spider-Man. This is a massive structural shift, and honestly, it's the smartest thing the franchise has done with this character. Instead of MJ slowly warming up to Peter over the course of a movie, Brand New Day flips the entire dynamic. Now Peter has to re-earn a connection he already had and lost. That's much closer to the classic comic dynamic, where Peter is always the one working to keep up with MJ, not the other way around. There's also a title connection worth mentioning here for the comic readers. Brand New Day is actually named after a real 2008 comic storyline where Spider-Man's marriage to Mary Jane gets magically erased from continuity. Different circumstances, similar core idea. A relationship gets wiped clean, and both characters have to figure out who they are to each other from scratch. It's a clever bit of reference that gives longtime fans something extra to notice. Now here's something worth mentioning that a lot of people don't know. This script didn't just come from the usual writing team. Justin Kuritskas, the writer behind Challengers, the same tennis movie that turned Zendaya into a box office headline, was brought in to do rewrites on Brand New Day. Think about that for a second. The person partly responsible for giving Zendaya one of her sharpest, most layered roles in years is now shaping her Marvel dialogue too. That's not a coincidence anyone should ignore. If this movie finally gives MJ some actual depth, that hire might be a big reason why. There's also been real behind-the-scenes drama during production. Filming was paused for about a week after Tom Holland suffered a concussion on set, which pushed the schedule around and added pressure heading into release. And Sony has gone as far as releasing the movie in 2 different aspect ratios, depending on the theater screen, which is the first time that's happened for a Spider-Man film. Small technical detail, but it shows how much weight this release is carrying. And the marketing numbers back that up. One of the trailers for this movie reportedly crossed 700 million views in its first 24 hours, eventually becoming one of the fastest trailers ever to hit 1 billion views total. Whatever people think about franchise fatigue in superhero movies right now, audiences are clearly still showing up for this one. Oh, here's the real takeaway. This isn't just a Spider-Man movie question. It's a bigger pattern in blockbuster filmmaking. Studios will cast incredibly talented actors, then write roles that only use a fraction of what they can actually do. Zendaya's Marvel arc is a pretty clean example of that. She was hired because of her range, then given almost none of that range to work with for 3 straight films. Brand New Day looks like the first real attempt to fix that. Give MJ her own life, her own agency, a comic-accurate confidence, and a writer who already knows how to write great tension for this exact actress. If it works, it might finally close that gap between what Zendaya is capable of and what the MCU has actually let her show us. Oh, that's where things stand heading into July 31st. A total memory wipe, a new dynamic between Peter and MJ, a comic-inspired title with real history behind it, and a writer who already knows how to write for this actress at her best. Do you think Brand New Day finally gives MJ the role she deserves? Or is the MCU going to play it safe again? Drop your prediction in the comments. I read every single one. If you want more breakdowns like this before the movie drops, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.